If God is truly good, why does life sometimes feel designed to destroy us? Imagine a small child praying before sleep. They asked for protection, so that their family stays safe, so that tomorrow will be better. A simple prayer, full of hope. Yet elsewhere in the world, another child is losing their home because of war. In one night, everything they know disappears. And at that point, the question begins to arise. If God is good, why does the world feel so cruel? Is suffering just a mistake? Or perhaps, is there something far deeper happening behind the reality we see? Most people grow up with a very simple idea. God is good, and the world should be good too. If God truly loves us, life should feel safe, fair, and predictable. At least that is the story we were taught as children. Yet then reality begins to disturb that story. Good people suddenly fall ill. People full of kindness lose everything. And most confusingly, sometimes those who hurt others seem to succeed. As if the world does not follow the moral rules we expect. And at that point, the old question arises again. If God is truly good, why can life feel so brutal? This is where everything starts to feel strange. This question is actually not new. It has haunted humanity for thousands of years. Philosophers have thought about it. Clergy have tried to explain it. And ordinary people keep asking it. Throughout history, this question keeps returning. And it even has a name, the problem of suffering, or often also called the problem of evil. But before we try to answer it, there is something we need to notice first. A hidden assumption within the question, an assumption we almost never realize. We tend to believe that a good world must be a comfortable world, a world without too much pain, without too much loss. But the question now is this: is that true? Try to notice how humans actually grow. Muscles do not grow in comfort. They grow through resistance. Bones become stronger precisely under pressure. Even the human brain develops through difficulty. Learning, failing, and trying again. Interestingly, children who never face challenges often struggle the most as adults, as if something important never had a chance to form. Growth, oddly, almost always requires friction. And the same pattern appears everywhere in life. Athletes go through brutal training. Scientists fail many times before discovering something new. Artists destroy their own work again and again before finally creating something beautiful. The history of human progress shows one consistent pattern. Progress is rarely born from comfort. It almost always emerges from tension. Yet at this point, the question becomes deeper. If struggle helps humans grow, does that mean suffering has a purpose? Or is it just a story we create to make pain feel more sensible? Because there is one more layer to this puzzle. Something we often value but rarely think through completely. Freedom. Imagine a world where no one can hurt anyone. No violence. No betrayal. No cruelty. At first glance, such a world sounds perfect, right? But now, think more carefully. For such a world to truly exist, humans cannot be truly free. They cannot choose evil. Their choices must be controlled, restricted and restrained, and suddenly that world starts to feel very different. Indeed, there is no real betrayal. Yet at the same time, there is no true loyalty, no cruelty, yet also no real goodness. Because goodness only has meaning if cruelty is possible. Love only matters if rejection is also possible. And there lies the paradox. Freedom always carries risk. And here the most difficult possibility begins to emerge. Perhaps the same freedom that allows humans to love is the same freedom that allows them to destroy. The source may be the same, human choice. Perhaps the beauty and cruelty of the world come from the same place. Yet even that explanation does not fully resolve everything. Because not all suffering comes from human action. Earthquakes, diseases, accidents, things that happen without intent, without choice. And sometimes nature itself seems completely indifferent to human pain. As if suffering exists even without anyone's fault. So the question changes again. Why does a good universe still contain so much chaos? Some thinkers have proposed an idea that sounds rather strange. What if the universe is not designed for comfort, but for development? Consider how a story works. A story without conflict quickly becomes boring. No risk, no tension, no growth. And eventually nothing truly meaningful happens. Now imagine human life without uncertainty, without struggle, without the possibility of loss, a world that is always safe, always stable, always easy. In such a world, would courage ever emerge? Would compassion ever be born? Would resilience ever form? Or rather, would life feel flat, empty, hollow? This is the most uncomfortable part to admit. Many human qualities we most admire only appear because suffering exists. Courage is born in danger. Goodness often arises in the hardest moments. Hope shines brightest in the darkness. Without hardship, perhaps those qualities would never need to appear at all. No reason to be brave, no reason to empathize, no reason to hope, and there the disturbing paradox begins to appear. The things that make humans seem so remarkable might exist only because the world is imperfect. And at this point, the question begins to shift. Perhaps the real question is not, why does a good God allow suffering? Perhaps the deeper question is this: what would a world without suffering look like? Would it really be paradise? Or would it be a world where nothing truly meaningful could happen? Because often meaning grows in the same soil as struggle, a place where humans are forced to endure, learn, and change. Yet, of course, none of this makes suffering easy. Pain remains real, loss remains devastating, and no philosophical idea can truly erase that. Yet perhaps all of this can change how we see the question. Perhaps suffering is not proof that the universe is cruel. Perhaps on the contrary, perhaps suffering is a sign that this reality is not yet complete. A world not fully formed, a world still moving, still changing, and still developing. And in that process, this world is also shaping the humans who live within it. So one day when the question arises again, if God is good, why does life feel so cruel? Perhaps there really is no simple answer. No short sentence can fully close that mystery. Yet perhaps the mystery is not just about suffering. Perhaps the real mystery is this: why the same world that can destroy humans also produces extraordinary courage, unexpected compassion, and moments of love so strong that sometimes they almost feel divine. Yet the question still hasn't truly gone away. It remains suspended, because if suffering truly shapes growth, why does it sometimes feel excessive? Some pain indeed builds strength, but some pain only destroys. A child who loses both parents, a family wiped out by disaster, a life destroyed even before it truly began. And at that point, the question becomes far more difficult. What purpose could possibly exist behind all of that? Here the question begins to feel uncomfortable. Because if we are honest, the universe does not seem to operate based on justice. Storms do not choose who deserves to suffer. Disease does not pause to check who is good or who is evil. Many things happen just like that, without warning, without a clear reason, as if reality moves with complete cold indifference. Yet strangely, in the midst of it all, humans insist on seeking meaning. We keep trying to understand, keep trying to explain, keep trying to find significance. The question is why? Why do we continue to believe that suffering must have a reason? Part of the answer actually lies within the human brain itself. Our minds are built to seek patterns. Since the beginning of human history, for early humans, the ability to recognize patterns could mean the difference between life and death. If they heard something rustle in the grass, it might just be the wind, but it could also be a predator. And those who assumed there was something behind the sound survived more often. Over time, the human brain learned a single habit. It keeps seeking connections and keeps seeking cause, constantly trying to understand what is happening. And eventually, one simple question always returns: why did this happen? Over time, that instinct developed into something much deeper. At first, it was only about survival. But slowly, it turned into a search for meaning. Humans do not just want to live, we want our lives to make sense. We want to believe there is a reason behind what happens. And nothing challenges that desire more strongly than suffering. Because pain that feels random is almost unbearable. Yet strangely, pain that has meaning can sometimes still be endured. Imagine a soldier on the battlefield, or a firefighter running into a burning building, or a parent working tirelessly so their child has a better life. They all suffer. There is fatigue, there is pain, there is sacrifice. Yet that suffering is connected to something greater, a purpose, and that purpose changes how the pain is felt. Yet the question becomes far harder when suffering feels completely meaningless. And at that point, people begin to question everything: faith and morality, even the idea that this universe is basically good. Suffering has a strange way. It breaks down things that once felt certain, things we never doubted before. Yet there is something interesting that philosophers often notice. The deepest spiritual questions rarely arise from a comfortable life. They almost always appear in the midst of suffering. When life runs easy, we rarely question existence. Days feel normal, everything moves as usual. And the big questions about life often remain silent in the background. But when everything collapses, when loss comes, when pain suddenly pierces life, something changes. Suddenly, the biggest questions begin to emerge. Why am I here? What is the real purpose of all this? Is there something beyond this life? As if pain opens a gap where those questions finally enter. And throughout human history, some of the most powerful ideas are born from that gap, from the place where humans begin to ask, religion and philosophy. Movements for justice, even compassion itself. All of these often emerge from humans encountering suffering. Consider this for a moment. When you see someone suffering, something inside you reacts immediately, you feel it. There is an urge to care, to help. And strangely, that feeling arises even when the person is a complete stranger to you. That reaction has a name. It is empathy. And empathy is one of the most powerful forces in human society. From there, many great things begin to grow. Medical advancements, charity, and the struggle for human rights. Entire systems created to protect and reduce suffering. In a rather strange way, suffering often becomes the very thing that drives humans to fight it, as if the pain we see in the world awakens something inside us, an urge to make the world a little better. And here a strange paradox begins to appear. The world indeed contains cruelty, yet humans continue to strive to reduce it. The world is full of pain, yet humans create medicine. The world is often filled with injustice, yet humans build laws. As if in the midst of this imperfect world, humans continue trying to push it little by little toward better. If suffering truly had no meaning at all, why would humans expend so much energy fighting it? Why does compassion exist? Why does the urge to help others arise so strongly? As if the same world that produces suffering also produces the urge to heal it. A conflicting pull. Pain and the effort to reduce it. And that tension slowly shapes human civilization itself. Hospitals, disaster relief teams, humanitarian organizations. Across the world, millions of people dedicate their lives to helping strangers. People they may never meet again. No obvious personal gain, no guaranteed reward. Yet they do it anyway. And at that point, another possibility begins to emerge. Perhaps this question is not only about God. Perhaps this question is also about us. Because every moment of suffering in the world always creates a choice. We can ignore it, or we can respond. Throughout human history, we have seen both. Horrible cruelty, yet also extraordinary kindness. Life-saving actions. Sacrifices never asked for, as if humanity continues to move between two opposing forces, darkness and light. Which means the story of suffering is not only about what happens to us, but about what we choose to do afterward. A disaster occurs, buildings collapse, lives change in an instant. And amidst that chaos, choices begin to emerge. Someone loots abandoned stores. Someone else runs toward danger, risking their life to save surviving victims. The same event, yet the response completely different. And suddenly, the focus shifts once again. Yes, the world contains cruelty, yet humans are not entirely powerless within it. Amidst all that uncertainty, choices still exist. Every act of compassion nudges reality in a slightly different direction. Every decision to help changes something, even if small. And every moment of courage gradually reshapes the story. And at this point, we return to the original question. If God is good, why does life feel so cruel? Perhaps the answer is not something we merely find. Not just an explanation waiting to be discovered. Perhaps the answer is something we participate in creating. Something shaped through human choices themselves. Because every time someone chooses goodness over indifference, something in this world changes. Every time someone protects the weak, every time someone refuses to add more cruelty to the world, they are making a real choice. A choice that pushes the world in a different direction. And perhaps unknowingly, they themselves become part of the answer. And perhaps that is where the deeper mystery lies. Not just about why suffering exists, but about something else. Why humans, fragile, imperfect, and often also hurt, still choose to fight it, still choose compassion, still choose to help others, still choose love, even in a world that sometimes feels so cruel. So in the end, the question remains, if God is good, why does life feel so cruel? Perhaps there is no completely easy answer. Yet behind that question, there is another question equally important. In a world full of suffering, why do humans still choose to be good?